South Africa on the Oscar Pistorius trial. Now to Burkina Faso, where the African Union has given the military government there about 2 weeks to hand over to a transitional government, despite all excuses that the military gave, and they were not interested in power. The warning comes after they had already agreed with members of the opposition that they would hand over power to a transitional government, which will then conduct elections between 60 to 90 days. The EU says the army had acted unconstitutionally when it took over power on Friday, October the 31st, after President Blaise Compaoré resigned following protests all throughout last week that he discontinue his desire to run for another term in office, having spent 27 years. The military had earlier said that the civilian-led transitional government would be established as soon as possible. They gave no time frames, but the AU has given them an ultimatum.
The military takeover happened only shortly after Blaise Compaoré stepped down. His move was so sudden there was not enough time to decide on a transition government. But by Saturday, a new leader had been announced in person of Lieutenant Colonel Isaac Zida as leader of a transitional government.
Il promet au peuple burkinabé tout entier de tenir leur engagement.
In his address, Lieutenant Colonel Zida said the military was not interested in power, but were working for the greater interest of the nation. Protests which erupted last week over Mr. Compaoré's plan to extend his 27-year rule, causing him to resign. When the military took over, they became more intense. Many called on the government to leave the public scene immediately, as their role is to safeguard the country's national integrity. Others insisted the biggest democracy in the world are governed by civilians, not by soldiers. On Sunday, protesters made their way to the state television headquarters. They said they were there to find out what was going on. They were being addressed by a colonel when gunshots rang out. Protesters dispersed, running for cover. By Sunday evening, a relative calm had emerged. The military said it had dispersed protesters to restore order, and key opposition figures met with Colonel Zida for talks. Under Burkina Faso's constitution, the head of the National Assembly takes over if the president resigns, with a mandate to organize elections within 90 days. However, the army has dissolved the legislature and suspended the constitution.
Meanwhile, Zambia's interim president, Guy Scott, has reinstated Defense Minister and presidential hopeful Edgar Lungu as the GTO to a powerful governing post, party post. Mr. Lungu had earlier accused the interim president of illegally sacking him at a time of mourning for President Michael Sata, who died last week. State media reports that a power struggle has been unfolding in the rural and patriotic front over the succession. Mrs. Scott said all campaigning was banned until after Mrs. Sata's burial. Edgar Lungu is a powerful figure within the Patriotic Front Party. Welcome back to the world today, where you need to hold your breath for this next story. The picture's coming right up. He's done it before, and he did it again on Sunday. A daredevil Nick Wallander broke 2 records when he made 2 high wire walks between the Chicago skyscrapers without a net or harness. And get this, he did the second walk blindfolded. A 35-year-old made the highest skyscraper walk in the history of the flying Wallander family of acrobats when he walked on the steel wire more than 2 city blocks uphill, rising at a 19-degree angle from the west tower of the Marina City Towers to the Leo Burnett building, more than 50 stories above the Chicago River. According to a representative from the Guinness World Records, the walk broke the world record for an incline high wire walk.
Because we didn't have any big equipment to use, so we had to use all small things, so it took longer. We used little cap stands to pull the wire up, and we had to lay it all on the ground, all along Dearborn Street and Wacker Drive.
And now talk about dreams coming true. After 15 years in the making, Aeromobile's Flying Roadster is currently on display in Vienna at the Pioneers Festival for Entrepreneurship and Digital Technology. Weighing just 450 kilograms with a wingspan of 8.2 meters, it can fly around 700 kilometers easily, far enough to cope with most journeys across the UK. There's even room for a flying companion if they don't mind squeezing in fairly close. It may sound like something from a science fiction film. I do hope we can show the videos as soon as possible. But Aeromobile co-founder Juraj Vucelic is adamant that the flying car is more than a boy's toy and could become a viable transport option for 2017. That's once it has undergone extensive testing, consuming just 7.5 liters of fuel per 100 kilometers traveled. It could also be an appealing option for commuters and holiday makers. Now, what's particular about this vehicle is that it has the potential in countries where light crafts are already frequently used, such as the United States, in Australia, and those with underdeveloped road infrastructure, some other African countries. The product is a brainchild of engineer and designer Stefan Klein, head of Transport Design Studio at the Academy of Fine Arts and Design in Bratislava. He dreamed of creating a flying car since childhood, but began seriously working on the idea at the university as early as the 1990s. And that's the world today. Thanks for watching. I am Amarachi Ivani.